1.
General Council meeting of March 24th, 2020 at 5:05 p.m. Sorry. Clock hasn't been turned back. Moment of silence. Approval of the agenda.
I have a motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda for its special meeting of March 24th, 2020 as presented.
All in favor? Unanimous. Declaration of pecuniary interest. None noted. Petitions and delegations. None noted. Approval of minutes and recommendations.
Motion moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that council approve the minutes of the following meetings. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held March 3rd, 2020.
All in favor? Unanimous. Motion, reports of municipal officers and communications. Service review.
Do you want to through you, your worship? Do you want to have the Scott?
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. There was a commitment
Based upon direction from back on the service delivery review for Heritage North. The service delivery review is ongoing. Mr. McDowell has provided a memorandum stating that the information will be coming forward to the April 7th meeting of council. I would ask for some relief in light of the current circumstances that April 7th may turn into a later meeting, just so council is aware, and we provide this information and are available to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any comments? I think I lost connection. I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me now? Obviously not.
No, we can, Your Worship.
Oh, you can? Okay. All in favor? Approved? Unanimous?
I think it's going to say things that are muted.
I think Wilf had his hand raised. I know this is, but it just shows up as a hand raised.
I see. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm having problems with both mic and video.
We can hear you.
Okay. Through you, Your Worship, I would like to suggest that the service delivery review be combined with the corporate-wide service delivery review that is proposed later in the agenda in this interest of both moving the project ahead and probably being more cost-effective. It's just a suggestion.
Comments from councillors? Is there any objection to that? I think it's a good idea because I think it'll be more detailed and independent, that's for sure. Any thought at all?
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. I'm just not sure if you were addressing me. I will take some time getting used to pictures. I
Yeah.
think that the timelines would be a little bit out for council. However, I think that doing it with a corporate, as part of a corporate review, would also bring into context both the resources and the other pressures that the corporation is facing, and how that affects its flexibility in providing any of the services, specifically at Heritage North.
Any comments from councillors? Can you hear me? Do we need a direction on that?
So would you like me to add to the motion that this memorandum be received and that staff continue alongside the corporate-wide strategic review?
I would suggest it be integrated with that staff proceed and the review be integrated with the corporate review, should council decide that.
Incorporating.
More fingers.
Councillor, sorry, Adams.
Yes, I just feel uncomfortable commenting with the later agenda items, so I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this.
Okay. Noted.
Just trying to- So if I amend the motion to say that this memo be received and that staff proceed with completing the Heritage North service review alongside the corporate-wide service review? Is that what you would like to say?
Any further comments? All in favor? Eugene, I didn't see your
I'm not
hand.
voting against it. I just, you know, I'm not sure if I have pecuniary interest. I'm just going to avoid the vote if you don't mind.
Abstain?
Sorry, Pat,
Yep.
before we vote, are we gonna have like the results of what already had started? Like, are we gonna get a report on that so we can see what progress has been made to date?
Rick?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Perhaps
Yes, and
we could just pass it as presented in the memo. And once that information, I think that will be valuable. If
staff wants to
wants to
refer that
the service delivery.
delivery review.
So I don't
think you're
think, and
perhaps
move.
move the meeting along.
Is that okay, Stacy?
Unfortunately, I could only hear every second word of that, what just came through, so I have no idea. Sorry, can Rick please repeat?
Certainly, my through you to council. So perhaps if we just address the motion as presented in the report, then staff can report back with the information they have to date. And then council could refer that to the service delivery review. And that might be helpful and might expedite the meeting.
Okay.
So the motion is memorandum number 2020-ED-001 entitled Heritage North Service Review Update be received.
All in favor? Opposed or Eugene?
I'm gonna, as I said before, I think I have a pecuniary interest because I have a hall rental. I just don't want to be involved in that vote, if you don't mind.
Duly noted. Okay, passed. Recreation complex services on statutory holidays.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be asking Treasurer Gorman to join me for these two reports, if that's all right.
Proceed.
At the regular meeting of Council on March 3rd, a Recreation Committee briefing was presented, and that was asked to go back to staff for more detailed information. So this is the follow-up report. So when reviewing the current stat holidays that we still have in 2020, you'll notice that we have on our chart listed on the presentation, the first three we have identified that we remain closed because these have already passed. And then we're suggesting that the next statutory holiday, potentially we could be open. Now, based on the situation that we have now, it's quite possible that facilities will not be open at this time. So this may have to be modified once again. But it does show that we could be open for Good Friday. We've also suggested two other holidays for 2020, both Victoria Day and Thanksgiving, that we could remain open on these days. The reason that we chose these days in particular were these were the days that we felt that both students were off school, parents may be off work to be able to bring their children to different events and activities that we have at the recreation complex. And we typically see very good numbers at our facility in spring, fall, and in winter. Our numbers do drop off in the summer months, and I believe that's due to the fact that a lot of people enjoy going to the splash park. They go to their camps and their cottages, they go to the beaches, and they do a lot of playing outside. So for 2020, staff are recommending that we entertain 3 different dates. And Treasurer Gorman was able to crunch a lot of numbers and be able to come up with what the net cost would be to the municipality. At this point, we have a financial analysis that Councillor Gorman has prepared. If he's able to address that, I will turn this over to him at this time.
Good evening, everybody. So as Bonnie touched on, we assessed the available holidays that were still remaining within 2020 and sort of landed on several that we thought would be of interest. We basically assessed the additional costs associated with opening the facility versus paying staff to be at home on a statutory holiday. We identified about $1,800 in incremental pay, which is essentially the premium with having the facility open, because you're paying staff members base rate plus time and a half for the hours worked on those days. We identified that we would need 9 staff in winter seasons with the ice rental and 8 staff for those seasons where it's just pool facility only. To offset the incremental costs, we used some conservative revenue numbers with basically basing our calculations on prior year, the day on the weekend before that date. So for instance, like in May, we're using a number based on the Sunday previous to that Good Friday, or sorry, the Sunday previous to Victoria Day for May. And we followed a similar process for each of those holidays we identified. We think with the conservative numbers, it'll have a minimal impact on the budget, and it'll be a good basis for a test run this year.
Thank you, Treasurer Gorman. So at this point, we are giving Council the recommendation that we would that we would include in the 2020 budget the funds necessary to operate 3 statutory holidays opening for 2020. At this point, council certainly has the ability to review and ask us to open on other statutory holidays, or in their preference to keep it as status quo, which we have in the past not operated. And there's quite a deal of information in there from past reports, as well as what our collective agreements currently states, and it does give us the ability to do this with the approval of our staff. So if there's any questions, we'd certainly entertain them.
Can't hear you, Mayor, but I raised my hand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I certainly thank you guys for the due diligence on that. That was an excellent cost breakdown and everything. I think certainly with today's situation of the pandemic, maybe Thanksgiving would only be an option at this point. I'm not too sure about Victoria Day. I'm not sure about Good Friday, but certainly Thanksgiving is certainly an option. I do agree with the summer holidays being time where everyone's outside at the splash park, etc. But I'm open to the 1300 for Thanksgiving at this point.
Okay. Shauna, can you unmute me? Okay. I agree, Councillor Adams. I think the attendance, Rick will get to you shortly. The attendance will increase on those weekends or statutory holidays. And in a sense, it's a form of marketing in our point. I think in the long term, it'll bring out more people for the use of the facilities up there, and will increase revenues to hopefully offset that $1,800 per statutory holiday staffing. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, I was wondering why not Canada Day? Now that the Festivals Committee's not operating, I think that might be an ideal day to have it open, especially since Canada Day falls on whatever day it falls on. Sometimes it's in the middle of the week, whatever. I'm just wondering what the rationale was for not including Canada Day.
Bonnie?
Our numbers that we've seen in the past on summer, either weekend days or during the week, our numbers definitely do decrease in the summer. So for this upcoming 2020 year, Canada Day does fall midweek, so it would not be an extension of a long weekend. It may be something that if council would like us to look at closer to see if there's any organizations in Kirkland Lake that are offering activities. We may want to add this to the list. That may be a recommendation that you give us later on close to the date, or we could add it now if that's your preference.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, well, there's Day in the Park, October and Operating Authority, but I was just thinking that's Canada Day is usually part of the homecoming event that the Festivals Committee put on, and the residents are kind of used to having something in the summer. That's the only reason I brought it up. I'm not, you know, I'm not really tied to the idea one way or the other, but I just thought it might be something we offer in lieu of what used to happen.
Councillor Adams? I can't hear him now.
Sorry. So certainly, I'm still open for Thanksgiving. If staff has done their diligence and have crunched the numbers on attendance, and I've certainly seen a drop. Being inside on a 30-degree day in a 20-degree building is certainly, I'd rather be outside at a lake personally. But for Thanksgiving, if we can have families stay within the community, support local businesses, I think that's certainly an option even for Thanksgiving weekend with families.
Councillor Ivanoff?
should be a good trial basis. It's one day. We'll see how it works out, and then if it works well, we can go on with maybe an extra day or two. But that's a great time to try it because usually it's pretty cool at that time of the year.
Keith?
Perhaps we can take this back, and Bonnie was going to seek out sponsorship. So in light of the current circumstances, we've had cancellations during the March break period. In anticipation of having to refund those people, there might be an opportunity to roll it in to these other days. Would you like us to further investigate that prior to deciding on a number of days?
I think that's a good option. Any comments from councillors? Councillor Adams?
I didn't really catch what the options were that Keith was saying. I apologize.
Go ahead, Keith.
Sorry, I'll try to speak up and avoid the echo. Sorry. So with March break, we've had some cancellations of the previously arranged sponsors. We could potentially seek to defer that sponsorship to these statutory holidays. We could have the Recreation Department reach out to those pledges and see if they would be comfortable sponsoring multiple days. So March break programming had multiple days covered. We may be able to offset that without having to actually refund.
Councillor Adams?
Oh yeah, I'm certainly down for that. If sponsorship and pay-per-use, if we can get those costs down, that's certainly an option that I'll entertain.
Okay.
So right now the motion reads to be open for, it says, facilitate business continuity at the recreation complex on statutory holidays in 2020. So the motion itself was pretty open for the rest of 2020. Are we wanting to amend that to only say that this report's received and that staff bring back options with sponsorship before moving forward? Or do we want to leave it as we're open for 2020 and go from there?
Councillor Adams?
Thank you, Your Worship. So certainly, if they're going to have the opportunity, I don't think we're going to be open for Good Friday or Victoria Day, just based on current situations. So if we can go back and look at potentials for lowering the revenue, the expenditure, then certainly Thanksgiving is certainly still a target for myself, but I'm one person.
So do we want to go ahead with this motion as presented? Do we want it amended? Councillor Adams?
Whatever we have to do to have them amend, that's what I would like to see. If it's up to the mayor to ask for more, but if Keith would like to have the opportunity to approach the sponsors and see if they want to sponsor something in Thanksgiving, that's something that would need direct.
Can we add that to the motion?
So I can amend the motion to say, be it resolved that report number 2020-CS-001 entitled Recreation Complex Services Statutory Holidays be received, and that council directs staff to bring a report back with options for sponsorship.
That sounds reasonable. All in favor? Passed. Rick?
Thank you, Your Worship. So my only concern is that now you've lost the main motion that directed staff to open for statutory holidays. So if that's what the intent is, or the main motion would just, staff would of course look for sponsorships and reducing costs as much as possible. So if that's council's His motion is probably to go with, and we'll do our best on all statutory holidays moving forward.
You want to reread the motion?
So the motion is be it resolved that report number 2020-CS-001 entitled Recreation Complex Services Statutory Holidays be received, and that staff be directed to ensure that the necessary funds are included in the 2020 proposed operating budget to facilitate business continuity at the recreation complex on statutory holidays in 2020.
Councillor Adams?
So is that like we're going to be open for all holidays at that point, if that's what we're looking for? Because we don't need to be open for Civic Holiday, Canada Day, or Labor Day, right? Like, I think the kind of general consensus at that point was Thanksgiving. So if we're going to get them to investigate, have them come back for Thanksgiving, right? Not all statutory holidays for 2020.
Rick?
Through you, staff's intention to, of course, go with Thanksgiving. If things changed in Victoria was a possibility, staff would certainly do that. But also, staff will budget to look after those statutory holidays in the 2020 budget. But Mr. Gorman, the community came forward and said, we want to sponsor Canada Day and fully cover the cost. Staff would most definitely look at opening Canada Day if that was the groundswell from the community and it actually created that momentum. So this will just permit the monies to be in the budget for the statutory holidays that council wanted, but also we would certainly open for business if the community dictated and was willing to sponsor that.
Any objections? So we'll vote on that motion that was presented. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Bonnie, Community Complex Lobby Advertising.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was another item that was brought to Council on March 3rd, and this came from the Recreation or the Parks and Recreation Committee briefing. And at that point, Council again asked staff to provide further information, and this is the report that you have before you. The first prong that we attacked was talking to the communications coordinator from the town of Kirkland Lake to determine what the capacity was from the IT department. And she has confirmed that yes, we absolutely would be able to purchase a screen. We would be able to run a slideshow with whatever content was provided, whether that was advertising, whether that was programming, marketing, things like that. The IT department would not be able to create or provide a backlit display that we currently have in the lobby. That is a specialized function that a multimedia design company would have to be utilized for if that would be the wish. We did speak about what the look is of the current kiosks that we have, and the information communications coordinator, Shauna, who you have with you tonight, she also did work for a long time at the community complex and was able to share what I had seen as well is that people do stop at both of these kiosks. They do stop to read what the marketing is that we have. They're probably looking at the ads as well because they're very nicely done. They're nice and bright, they're colorful. It is a very professional image. It definitely adds to the customer experience that we have here. And we have seen people stop and actually wait as the slides go by. The current agreement that we have, which will expire in June of this year, it does allow our local businesses to deliver their branding and to definitely show a profile within Kirkland Lake. We found out that it is at a fairly competitive or economical cost, and it does provide a bit of a revenue stream to the town. To try to do a bit more research on the topic so you'd have more information before you make a decision, it does seem to be the norm with communities that do choose to use the backlit kiosks. There are 42 communities currently partnering with Future Sign Multimedia, and we did attach what those communities are. This came from the Future Sign website. Also, prior to making a decision, we provided you with some more information about what current agreements there are at the community complex. So we have 2 other advertising agreements. The first one is with the Gold Miners Junior Hockey Club, and they are renting space on rink board, anything in the arena. They have exclusive rights to advertising. So currently they do on ice advertising, they do rink board advertising, they do wall space, and they do the ice resurfacer. Right now, the agreement that we have with them, they are paying 10% in accordance with the agreement. So for this calendar year, or this actually ice year, 2019 and 2020, the municipality is receiving $5,050 from this contract. The second one is from the Kirkland Lake Aquatic Club, and this was after a delegation to council in which the Aquatic Club asked if they could have advertising rights in the aquatic center, and the corporation did agree to that, and council agreed that they would pay 10% up to $800 for the advertising that they do in the pool area. The Future Signs agreement is similar in the sense that at this point we receive $1,000 per year. We did ask Future Signs for what the rates are that they charge the various businesses, and they range between $300 for the smaller ads up to $1,450 for the larger ads with the digital display. So just by counting the ads that are currently on both kiosks, we are estimating that the revenue that Future Signs obtains per year is about $9,650. From the financial implications part, if the council does adopt the recommendation as presented, we would generate about $5,000 in revenue over the next 5 years. And there's at this point, there's no work or dollars that would have to be spent by the corporation. There are a number of options that you may wish to look at prior to making your decision. Could purchase screens. So it would be similar, it would be a large television screen is basically what it would be. And staff would create a slideshow presentation to show marketing. From the information coordinator, the cost would be about $3,000 for us to purchase the screens, the computer, and the software that it would take to go along with the 2 different areas. We did not include advertising in one of these options just because if you're looking at just a slideshow and we added content from the marketing that we want to do in the information and added advertisements to it, we just thought it would take a long time to get to each ad. We're not sure if people would actually stand there and see them. So we're not sure if the media or the advertisers would see a value. We have a concern that local businesses may not want to pay additional tax dollars. And there's also the fact to take into consideration, if staff are creating pricing and packages and selling, it will take staff time to solicit advertising space. So that's one option. The other option is to purchase the screens that the information coordinator has suggested and create a slideshow, and the recreation staff would sell advertising. Third option, because we are at the end of this agreement, we could offer another request for quotation for what we have similarly right now, and there may be a potential that a local business would be able to bid on this and provide us with the professional look that we're used to having and keep those dollars from the advertising within Kirkland Lake. Or you may direct staff to renegotiate with the current holder of the contract and to see if there's a possibility to get more dollars from the revenue that they're obtaining. Just to comment on that, we have investigated what some other municipalities are receiving from Future Signs, and they are receiving the same percentage, the same amount of dollars. So it does seem to be a standard, although there's no harm in trying. And the other thing that's open for discussion at this point is if you do wish to extend the current agreement, is what is the length of that. So the current agreement does indicate that there is an option for another 5-year renewal, but both parties are to agree. So council may wish to, in the interest of time, we could do something like a 1-year renewal with Future Signs, and that would give the corporation time to look at overall, what do we want to do with naming rights, with corporate sponsorship, with advertising. We may want to look at a whole municipal view at that point. So there's a number of options to discuss, and I can certainly defer to Treasurer Gorman to see if he has anything to add, because he was instrumental in preparing this as well.
I'd have nothing to add, Bonnie.
Bonnie, to go it alone ourselves, then we would require our staff to solicit and attempt to get advertising. Does that seem reasonable for our staff to do that?
It would not be my recommendation that our staff is selling advertising. I think that we would be competing with our user groups, and I don't think that would go over well with either one of the user groups that currently have advertising rights in the various areas. It's not our expertise either. It's not really our core business for us to sell advertising. So that would not be my recommendation that staff take that on.
I agree. Councillor Ivanoff.
I just wonder if there's an appetite in the community for somebody to go out on commission sales and sell advertising for the lobby of the complex. I know that has happened with when they had the drag race committee. After the town gave it up, they hired somebody on a commission basis. It was 10% or whatever they brought in, and they got paid that. So they would sell advertising for the drag races, and they sold a lot of advertising. So I'm just wondering if that would be of interest to somebody in the community who is willing to do something for a week or a month, whatever it takes to sell that. And it's done for a year. And at $9,600, if you give somebody 10% of that, they make $1,000, and we pocket $8,000 less the expenses of putting those services into the complex at a $3,000 budget. It sounds like it over a 5-year period, there could be a $40,000 gain for the community.
Councillor Adams.
Unmute. Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of bringing this in-house. We do have a corporate communications coordinator, and one of the recommendations from our previous reports that we paid money for suggested that they almost take over the community complex, like Facebook communications and stuff like that. So I think that would be an awesome opportunity for that to happen, because there should only be one message coming out. So whether a display is backlit or not, if people are waiting for their children to come out, or they're waiting in the lobby of the complex, if something's moving as a slideshow, they're going to watch it. And if we have an opportunity to keep that money within the community rather than sending the estimated $9,600 outside to somebody else for pretty much having a backdisplay display, I'd be in favor of doing it in-house with certainly with communications of our corporate communications coordinator.
My opinion, considering what Bonnie's concerns are, I have to agree somewhat, but I would favor a one-year contract, because I think for us to put this together for the municipality itself is going to take a little bit of while, take some time, and I don't think we're quite ready for that. We've got a lot on our plate. That's my personal opinion. Councillor Adams.
Well, if we're going to do a one-year extension, I would be in favor of ensuring that we're also investigating at the same time how we're going to bring it in-house at the most feasible opportunity and rates, with utilizing the previous report of having our communications also look after the complex.
I would agree with you on that. Any other comments or discussions? Can you amend the?
Okay, I'm amending the motion to read, moved by Dennis Perrier, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that report number 2020-CS-002 entitled Community Complex Lobby Advertising be received, and that council approve an extension of the current agreement with Future Sign Multimedia Displays for 1 year, and that council direct staff to investigate options for keeping the service in-house.
Any comments? Councillor Adams.
Is it possible to have a date within that report as to when it's going to come back by? I'm not going to dictate what date. Staff would recommend a date that they could do that by. That would be preferred.
Would you like us to look for something perhaps in the fall, so that early fall, so that there's plenty of time prior to the end of this contract?
That would seem reasonable.
So I can add to the motion to keep it in-house and report back by October, November? Which month, sorry?
October's fine. First meeting of October?
The first meeting of October 2020.
Any further comments? All in favor? Passed. The treasurer, summary of remuneration and expenses of elected officials.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Municipal Act 2001, Section 284 specifies that the treasurer shall report on or before March 31st an itemized statement of remuneration and compensation paid to council members, as well as those appointed by the municipality to serve on bodies, such as local service boards. This report, 2020 FIN 001, is in response to the regulation. If you refer to the statement, remuneration for mayor and council was in line with bylaw 18-149, which previously set out compensation over the term of office for our elected officials. All councillors received $13,556 respectively, and the mayor received $37,480. As you look at benefits and allowances, these comprise of costs that are associated with payroll burden, such as payments towards Canada Pension Plan that the corporation has made on behalf, as well as extended health benefits, such as vision, dental, healthcare, and life insurance. Our travel and conferences represent reimbursements for expenditures on municipal affairs, such as conferences that were attended, your mileage, hotels, and such. Those types of things. And then the last column is miscellaneous expenses. And this column represents the funds that were put towards training and development. I was not actually remitted to the councillor specifically or the mayor. It was made to a third party for professional development and training on their behalf. Outside of the mayor and council remuneration that you find towards the top, we have also included the police commission honorariums, which totaled $2,750, as well as local service boards, including DSAB and the health unit. The numbers for DSAB and the health unit came from those organizations. Are there any questions about this report?
Treasurer Werman, I have one concern, the miscellaneous. I don't believe that compensation or remuneration that goes directly to any council member, and the history in the past anyway, we did not include that as earning directly to the councillors. So I don't see where that it kind of distorts the actual payment that is made to the council members. So I don't believe that should be in there.
No problem. We can remove that. We did look at several municipalities, and it kind of is consistent on how things are done. We erred on the side of caution with this one, only because it had been previously included in expenses that related to conferences, and we just didn't want to disconnect if a number had been previously presented, and then have somebody question. But we can remove this, no problem.
I think that's a reasonable request, because I'll get shortly, because it does distort the actual amount paid to the counselors, and counselors are very prudent in not taking an in pay over the last year. So I would rather see it removed. Councillor Owen.
Yes, Your Worship, to Rick, I was wondering as CAO and his past experience, if he knew there was anything municipal, or if this is the standard way of doing it. I just like Rick to comment on it. Thank you.
Rick?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would say it's entirely reasonable to remove these expenses as training expenses from a corporate perspective, and they should not be allocated to the councillors' individual salaries and remuneration.
Any further comments? You're okay with that, Treasurer Gorman?
Yes, of course.
So right now the motion is only to receive. So would you like it to be amended to say council direct staff to remove
Miscellaneous expense.
Miscellaneous expense. So moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the report number 2020-FIN-001 entitled 2019 Summary of Remuneration and Expenses of Elected Officials be received, and that council direct staff to remove the miscellaneous expense.
Any further comments? All in favor? Unanimous? Passed. Vesting of properties. Is Ryan Dagelman?
Ryan won't be joining us tonight. I'll present on his behalf.
Present that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is to report the results of our tax sale of Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. There were a number of properties listed, and the ones within this report had no bids received. It's recommended that we vest these properties, write off associated taxes and declare them surplus, and possibly advertise for sale. By writing these off, we'll be able to charge back school board taxes, which had been previously remitted to the school boards, but was not collected. And then furthermore, if we were to sell these properties, there's the opportunity to regain some of those lost revenues and potentially have properties that would be back into a taxable class and allow for future collection of taxes.
Any questions or comments?
The motion moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that report number 2020-FIN-002 entitled Vesting Properties Tax Sale of Wednesday, November 6, 2019 be received, and that council for the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake vest the following unsold tax sale properties with the municipality: 3 McKelvey Avenue, 0 Swastika Avenue, 0 Folger Street, 61 Brant Street, 1 Government Road East, 2 Premier Avenue East, and that council hereby directs staff to write off the taxes for these properties and take ownership of these properties, and that these properties be declared surplus to the needs of the municipality and advertised for sale.
All in favor? Unanimous? Do we have a separate we're finished with the properties thing? Oh. Go ahead, Keith.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was one additional property advertised for sale on this November 6th sale that also had no successful bids. We've separated it and put it into a separate report, only because we do not feel it'd be in the best interest of the municipality to vest this property. So we're recommending at this point in time to write off the associated taxes, recoup the portion of school board taxes that have already been remitted, but not bring it into the municipality's name for fear of liability that could be associated with the property.
Can we identify that as an environmental issue, or we don't have to identify the reason for that?
I think in this case, we've identified it as potential environmental liabilities.
Okay.
It's not a residential property or anything like that. It's a commercial property.
Okay.
That's had different equipment that's deteriorated over the years. And I think there's fear that the soils may be contaminated and other things.
That's fair. Any other comments? Right.
I have a motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. Report number 2020-FIN-003, entitled Write-Off Uncollectible Taxes, Tax Sale of Wednesday, November 6, 2019, be received, and that council for the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake write off outstanding tax liabilities, the following, liabilities, the following tax sale properties of the municipality. There's roll number 5468-000-016-26-000-0000-695 Government Road West, and that council hereby directs staff to write off the taxes for these properties in future years until such time that the property sells.
All in favor? Unanimous? Passed. Municipal program funding approval.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is to just identify the results of our application that we submitted in November. We've received confirmation from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing that the town was successful in its application for the program. What we did is we submitted a request to receive funding towards a service delivery review. We're asking that we be able to enter into the agreement to complete and authorize the transfer payment, and that we begin the process to release a request for proposal for the services that were described within the service delivery review and the application for funding.
Any comments or questions from councillors? None?
Okay, I have a motion moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that report number 2020-FIN-004, entitled Municipal Modernization Program Funding Approval, be received, and that council directs staff to present a bylaw to council to authorize the town of Kirkland Lake to enter into the transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for a total of $170,024 to complete the service delivery review project, and that staff be directed to prepare and release a request for proposal for the provision of services to complete a service delivery review in accordance with the conditions stipulated within the transfer payment agreement from the province of Ontario.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Kirkland Lake Drinking Water System Annual Summary Report. Is Michelle, we will hear a report from Michelle Riberty and rely on any further input, additional input from Eric Nielsen from Aqua. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. The reports have been prepared in accordance to the Ontario Regulation 170-3 by Ontario Clean Water Agency on behalf of the town, and the reports were based on the documentation that Aqua has been maintaining. As you well know, the Ontario municipalities have been required to comply with the Ontario Regulation 170 made under the Safe Drinking Water Act. That came about the Walkerton inquiry. Pleased to report that we are in compliance as per the report. If Eric, if you may want to add something to this.
Everybody hear me okay? Just nod.
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, last year's water report, we got 100% on it, which was good. First time in a couple of years. And the one recommendation they had is we had the chlorine analyzer at the Shappy Hughes standpipe required frequent calibration. And so so one recommendation from the ministry was to look into that. And I believe we have it on our capital recommendations list for 2020. Yeah, the plant ran really well. The changes we're making are good. So yeah, there's nothing else to report from our end. Everything is good. And just for all of your information, we you know, during this time, AUC was well prepared to keep on making water and keep on treating your wastewater at your plants. Okay, so you can sleep tight at night. Thank you.
Eric, you know approximate guesstimate at the cost of dealing with that one recommendation that came up?
Yeah, new analyzers, Mr. Mayor, they're usually $8,000 or $9,000.
Okay, so it's not a major expense. It's
no.
Not major. I guess one other comment, Eric, would be it's been a while now since we've seen brown water, so obviously that problem was solved, and we certainly we appreciate that, and the public does, because it was a headache that we had to deal with for about 1.5 years. So in that regards, keep up the good work. Any further comments from councillors? None noted.
Motion moved by Casey Owen, seconded by Dennis Henry. Be it resolved that report number 2020-PW-001 entitled Kirkland Lake Drinking Water System 2019 Annual Summary Report be received, and that Council for the Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake hereby accepts the Kirkland Lake Drinking Water System 2019 Annual Summary Report as presented, and that staff be directed to upload the Kirkland Lake Drinking Water System 2019 Annual Summary Report to the town's website.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Kinross Pond Trial Winter Maintenance.
Through you, Your Worship, council members have been approached about the possibility of maintaining the trails in Kinross Pond throughout the winter. If we would do so, we would have to maintain the trails as per the sidewalks, as per the minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways. We see a lot of issues with that if we do proceed. We got some culverts that are eating. We have soil conditions that, you know, if we remove the snow on this trail, it may affect the trail over time. It's going to be a cost that we will have to address in our operation capitals. If I believe that maintaining the snow as an insulation on the trail is more adequate than opening the trails. There's we've seen that there's safety issues. There's no light standards in the area, and we would have to have several members of our staff to clean the area. That would mean handling snow by hand, by trackless, by a backhoe, we would have to open the parking lot. So to me, it is a fair cost to open that trail. So we do recommend that we keep it unmaintained at this time. Because we don't have the resources at this time. We do have to look into more equipment to maintain our road system and the sidewalks we do have at the present time. So that being said, we would like to keep that trail unmaintained.
Councillor Adams? Oh, nothing.
I was talking to my wife, but sure. Yeah, I certainly in favor of not opening it up and putting that money into that and having to adhere to the standards. Certainly something you can do if you want to enjoy the outdoors is strap on some snowshoes. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Well, we do have, as far as the snowshoeing, we do have the trails behind the complex, which is a great, they do a great job up there, and it's free to community members to get the use of the snowshoes, plus also skis. So, but I think we're adequately covered there. Councillor Ivanov.
No, I agree with you and Councillor Adams. I think it's, we have lots of trails in town, around town. We can get there quickly. The parking lot's kept clean. People have lots of room to park. Trails are amazing. Just all we have to do is go and use them.
I do have a question. Go ahead, Councillor Perrier. Dennis, can you hear us? Dennis, can you hear us? We couldn't hear you.
How's that?
Yep.
There you are.
You're on.
Okay. I agree with you and Councillor Adams. I think that's a luxury we can't afford right now. And I think we get enough slack about snow removal and snow plowing right now. If there were streets and that are covered with snow and the guys were out doing Kinross Pond, you imagine the hassle we get over that. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Question for Michelle. The actual parking lot, do we maintain that? Because that is not owned by the town. I think we lease that from Canadian Tire. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we don't maintain it during the winter months.
So Canadian Tire, the owners look after that themselves. And I think opening it up to the walking trail could cause some, not that we're against our lease, but they've been very fair, and it's worked out okay over the years since they've allowed us that.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that report number 2020-PW-002 entitled Kinross Pond Trail Winter Maintenance be received, and that staff be directed to maintain the Kinross Pond Trail as an unmaintained trail during the winter months.
All in favor? Passed, unanimous. Proposed parking modifications. Manager of Planning and Development.
Thank you, Your Worship. This one here, we had a couple, or I'd say 4 business operators in the downtown that approached me earlier this month, suggesting that they have run into some financial issues with not getting enough revenues as a result of the parking restrictions on Government Road from Labelle to Prospect. So they requested that we bring this back to Council to consider removing the parking restriction from Labelle to Prospect and allow parking to happen on the south side of the wall, or south side of the road. So just to shed some history, the last time we brought this up for council to consider was in February of 2019. And the reason why we wanted to reduce the parking on the south side was to allow for better vehicle traffic for heavy vehicles going on government roads. So it's sort of bottlenecks right by Subway and the staircase that's there. So by eliminating parking on one side of the road, it allowed for snow to kind of stay on that south side of the road, and eliminated Public Works having to go out more to clear the snow and allow for better transportation through that section. So the original recommendation that we had in February was either to remove the parking on that south side or to look at plowing it more often. So I did get some numbers from Public Works, and I'm sure Misha's willing to talk about them if there is some clarification needed. It looks like it's about $6,500 roughly in order to go in and remove the snow in that area regularly, or every time it snows, in order to accommodate for those heavy vehicles to pass through safely. We also wanted to suggest a potential second option, which would be to allow for 2 to 3 parking spaces to happen where that loading zone is currently right now. So leave the loading zone and add 2 to 3 spaces. It kind of restricts us, but it still kind of gives us enough room by that bottleneck to allow vehicles to move. The majority of the people that did come see me were in that one little corner, so right by where that loading zone is located. So it is an option. Another thing that they had suggested, and I did bring a little bit of information to council for consideration, was the 1 hour restricted parking and pay and display units. So we did look at this originally in 2016, and I wasn't able to get an up-to-date quote. I asked, but I haven't gotten anything back. It's about $270,000 to install about 15 to 20 units. And then there's about a $15,000 annual operating cost associated with it. We could also try to look at doing it without the pay and display units and see how bylaw enforcement is capable of enforcing a 1 hour parking limit downtown. It's somewhere we can go with it if we'd like to consider it. At this point, if council is interested in doing a 1 hour restricted parking or getting more information, I'm just asking you to tell me that, and I'll bring another report with further details for you to consider. But I did want to bring it up. It was brought up by the 4 business owners as an issue. So with that, I'm open for questions or comments.
Comments from councillors? Councillor Evanoff? Can't hear you.
Sorry, I think if you got a couple of parking spots down around across from the RBC, that might be of some benefit, but taking all the parking off on that side of the road is, I know it's detrimental, and to businesses there. They took away the handicap parking in front of where it used to be the old pharmacy, Kirkland Pharmacy, where the fire was, a little parkette was there. That's affected. I know that the Jewel Box has been affected substantially. I know that Councillor Owen doesn't find a hard time parking in the old Woolworths parking lot, but I go by there often, and it's often full. And I think that parking downtown, if you want to kill your retail, that's a great way of doing it. We'll have no retail left downtown if we continue this in this form or fashion. I know we have a snow removal problem. I still have a hard time believing it's $6,500 to remove snow downtown every time it snows. That sounds ridiculous to me, but you know, I'm not going to argue with the numbers if somebody says that they've done the research and that's what it is. It sounds like most other communities in Northern Ontario, including New Lisbon, never keep snow on their downtown streets. They're cleaned up regularly and they don't have an issue with that. It seems Kirkland Lake does. I'm not sure why. I know that there's other communities that don't have an issue with it.
Councillor Adams?
I'm not in favor of pay and display units. That certainly, as Councillor Eugene mentions, is a way to kill the downtown. Especially surprised that it comes from business owners. For the cost of snow removal on the south side, I'm still confused on how we can't just put it in the truck in one shot instead of handling it twice. If you do a risk assessment, running the curb, you know there's a curb there, but yet we cut the banks in residential neighborhoods and don't know what's inside the snowbank. So on a risk management scale, I still think it's better to run the snowblower once and get those costs down and not having to handle it twice. But if we're hurting the business owners downtown, let's try it out. It was a trial. We plan, do, assess, act. So we assessed, and I guess it's not working and hurting businesses, but not in favor of pay and display. And I think we can probably still try and work towards getting those snow removal costs down.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah. There's a number of factors that affect business, not just parking. And when when the restaurants went to straight takeout, the one operation that we contacted and to find out if they needed cones indicated their business was down 50% this year. So there's a lot of factors that enter into it. I witnessed one accident last year during the summer, which I believe 2 of the vehicles were totaled. A third one sustained considerable damage. That's summer months with parking on that side. My daughter witnessed an accident where a transport sideswiped a parked pickup truck on Government Road and kept going. She got the license number and the police eventually charged the guy. That's summertime, which says to me that road is not wide enough in the summer with parking on both sides. Now we add the winter when it's even more narrow. And with the cement wall there, people tend to park more out into the road so they can open the door if they have passengers and get out on that side, which creates even more obstruction. When I worked in retail in Southern Ontario, we always waited for the first nice weekend after the snow was gone, and we always hoped for an early spring because we were run off our feet. If spring came late, we didn't pick up that business. Up here, I imagine it's later, but this is a slow time of year for business in the retail business. I'm not in favor of making downtown less safe and then making neighborhoods less safe too, because we're using manpower that normally would have been taken away snowbanks from residential areas. And at the same time, we're increasing our costs by $6,300, but yet on the tax and the supervisor, you're talking $6,500 every time. We already amended the loading zone bylaw so that customers could use the loading zone at that end to accommodate the businesses down there. We added a parking lot, and I know Eugene says he goes by and it's busy. I never once have not been able to find a parking spot, and I use that parking lot quite a bit, especially if I have the truck, because I use it to go to TD Bank. I don't see, if I'm a senior and I can walk from there to TD Bank, why people can't walk the other half block the other way. It's not, myself, I would put community safety above all else. And if we do take that away, we're going to make the community less safe both on Government Road and in residential areas. As for the paid parking, I'm certainly not in favor of that. That's been an ongoing issue for many years in this town. Part of the problem historically has been employees of the businesses downtown and owners of the business downtown using up prime parking right in front of their businesses. And over the years, town councils have approached the chamber's gone on the bandwagon, and the businesses didn't listen. They still did it. Town council tried various methods to encourage them to park elsewhere. I just can't see making our community less safe when we're having accidents there in the summertime with no snow. So I'm certainly not in favor. And this year, of course, we have the added downturn with the state of emergency. We only have, I think that parking ban goes to April 15th. There's only a few weeks left. I don't see the benefit of changing it this year. I'd be open to further discussion, but I think there's a lot of, well, on the radio, the one business owner said, well, people don't want to buy big things from a store because they don't want to carry to the cars. Many of the businesses that I deal with, I don't even ask. They offer to carry it to my car. You know, so there's a lot of factors go into why business is down. They also face an incredible bricks and mortar retail right now is in big trouble because you got your big companies like Amazon, which are selling for less and delivering to the doorsteps. People don't have to leave. You can buy furniture, you can buy bedding, you can buy flooring material, you can buy anything online. And then for the lower income people and people like myself, the buy and sells. I buy a lot of stuff off the buy and sells. Everything from tools to a car. So, I mean, that's additional pressure on the bricks and mortar retail. Put it all back
Getting off the subject, Councillor Owen.
Hey?
We're getting off the subject slightly.
No, we're not. We're talking about parking, and I'm saying other reasons that affect business.
I think you've
It's
made
not just parking.
You've made your point. We'll move on to Councillor Owen. Owens, I'm sorry.
And my only point on this one is if a year ago we identified this as a problem issue and now we revert back to allowing parking and something happens, does this expose us to a greater level of liability because we identified this as a problem and choose to ignore it?
I think it would if you didn't have, if you didn't go ahead with the winter maintenance. So if you were,
but what I'm worried in that is and this is not a cheap shot in any way, shape, or form. I don't want it to be taken that way, but our track record with winter maintenance, we've been on council for 2 years, and for 2 years it's like a broken record. We say, oh, we're going to do better, and we don't do better. So I'm hesitant to say, okay, we're going to take this parking ban down, reinstate parking, we're going to try and stay on top of the snow, and then first snowfall we'll fail at it. And again, it's not a cheap shot, it's just 2 years worth of observations and emails back and forth.
Before we go to Councillor Adams, Rick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council. I certainly understand and appreciate the comments with respect to winter maintenance. I hope Council and the community saw a difference in the approach to winter maintenance last Friday during the winter storm. Unfortunately, we got a lot of blowing snow that perhaps impacted our staff's efforts. But I am confident that Mr. Ribardi and his staff are going to come back very strong in the fall of 2020. And we will also be reviewing the winter maintenance, minimum maintenance standards, and report to council prior to the snow flying in the fall to provide an improved level of service and implementation for a process that council and the community and all staff can be proud of. So I'm confident that you're going to see improved services in winter maintenance as the days and months proceed. And I think that we can look at potentially improving a process for the removal of the snow on the business core government road area that is going to be impressive for everyone in the north and make Kirkland Lake the pride of the north. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah, so we did a age-friendly community planning, and within that document, we documented and listened to the concerns of individuals, specifically the seniors, that were unable to access shops due to the snowbanks that they have to climb over, being a safety hazard. So if we were to take safety seriously, we've documented the concern, I would certainly go with enhance snow removal in that area. Following up with our age-friendly community planning that we've listened, we've documented, and we'd like to identify that we're going to move forward and try to remove those snowbanks.
Thank you. My own feelings on this. Operated the town of Kirkland Lake for 100 years. It has never been a major issue up until the last couple of years. Part of that is due to the logging trucks. I agree. But if the snow removal was done on both sides of the street to the curb, it adds about 2 feet on each side. I think it's a reasonable approach. We tried the no parking. I don't think it's working to any extent. And I support removal of the parking or removal of the signs and allow parking on that street. It's the main thoroughfare through downtown. When people come to town, they expect to be able to get clear passage and parking in the downtown area. So that's my thoughts. Any other councilors? Dennis, we can't hear you.
I never said that.
Oh.
But that's fine. I agree 100% with what you're saying. I lived on government road for most of my life growing up as a kid, and I don't know what's changed, but the snow removal was always done, and I don't remember a lot of accidents when I was a kid down there. The truck's bigger or what? I don't know. That's all.
Any further comments from councilors? We have a recommendation. Oh, sorry, Councillor Owens.
So we're guaranteed that come next fall, we'll have a brand new plan that we're gonna see like a major improvement in our downtown core for snow removal.
Well, that's part of the snow removal plan, yes.
So if the snow removal plan doesn't work, then what? Because, yeah, that's it. That's all I had. Yeah, never mind. I'm done.
Okay. Any other comments?
The motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that report number 2020-dev-001 entitled Proposed Parking Modifications be received, and that staff be directed to prepare and present a bylaw to council addressing the following modification to the parking bylaw. Removal of parking restrictions on the south side of Government Road, pending increase the budget to include snow removal as suggested in this report. That staff be further directed to present a report to council with recommendations assessing the pros and cons of and display parking units in the downtown core.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Owens.
Are we actually going to consider the paint or meters downtown? Is that even worth going there? Like, I personally don't agree with that. I think if you want to remove the parking, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and remove the parking, but no parking meters.
I would agree to that as well. I think we don't have an extra 200,000 laying around, whatever the cost is. Councillor Stacy White.
Yeah, I think that is too much because I want to be able to accept the report, but if I want to vote against the recommendation, it's slapped together, and so I have no options. It has to be separate, please.
Are you referring to the parking meters and?
Yeah, it has to be a motion to accept the report, and then do you wish to get rid of parking? I think it should be two separate motions.
Okay. So I can just take away the bottom half, so it'll just be it resolved that report number 2020-01 entitled parking applications be received, and that staff be directed to prepare for bylaw council addressing the following modifications bylaw: removal of parking restrictions on the south side of government, increase the budget with snow removal as suggested in this report.
All in favor?
Oh, just redo that. So that's, we're voting parking tonight, or just we're getting the report and that's it?
There's some confusion here because
So
we just accepted.
So through your worship, now the way that motion, it does include the parking, but I can take also that away as well if you just want to receive the report today.
Councillor White, is that acceptable?
I think we can vote on the parking as well this evening. However, I want it to be two separate. I want to, personally, I'll receive the report, but I'm going to vote against removing the parking now. We only have 21 days left. We're under essential services. Like, I want the option to vote separately. Receive the report, I'll say yes. Remove parking, I'm going to vote no.
We can do that.
Through you, your worship, we can do that, but receiving a report is well, I just think you can just vote on the parking, and that's part of that report on, even if you're saying yay, it's not saying you're not receiving the rest of the, maybe, sorry, PAO Rick, can you help me?
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council, I apologize. I had to leave the meeting to reboot my device. I believe I understand what Councillor White is attempting to do, and what she's trying to do is separate the question or divide the question, because she wishes to support the motion to receive, but she wishes not to support the motion to eliminate the parking. So there's two ways to go about this. Councillor White could ask for a friendly amendment for the mover and the seconder to divide the question and separate them. Councillor White could, and if the mover and the seconder refuse, Councillor White could put a motion on the floor to divide the question. And if there was a seconder, then the question could be voted upon to divide the question. But it may be simpler just for the mover and seconder to agree to dividing the question, call the motion on the motion to receive, and then the motion separately to remove the parking, and then all members could vote accordingly as to the way they wished. Does that assist?
Can we have the move, whoever moved the motion and the seconder agree to that?
It is moved by Stacy and seconded by Dennis.
Yeah, I'll agree to that. To separate them, eh?
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor White, you agree? I agree. Ed.
Okay, so moved by Stacy White, seconded by Dennis Perrier, be it resolved that the report number 2020-dev-001 entitled proposed parking modifications be received.
All in favor? Unanimous?
Can I have a move and a second for the second portion?
Moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. And could we have a recorded vote, please?
Okay, so moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare and present a bylaw to council addressing the following modification of the parking bylaw: removal of parking restrictions on the south side of Government Road, pending increase to budget to include snow removal as suggested in this report. Sorry, before I finish, am I also including that other portion about the pay and display parking, or we're just talking about parking in this one? So just parking, okay.
I thought we were actually going to vote yay or nay as far as removing the signs or removing the parking or leaving it, allowing parking. Is that clear?
That's clear to me.
Okay. Do you want to read that again then, please?
Moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw to council addressing the following modification to the parking bylaw: removal of parking restrictions on the south side of Government Road, pending increase in budget to include snow removal as suggested in this report.
All in favor?
Say yes, no.
As a recorded vote, we do yeas or nays around the table as alphabetical.
That's right. You'll have to ask each individual councillor.
Okay. Patrick Adams,
Yay.
Eugene Ivanov,
Yay.
Rick Owen,
Nay.
Casey Owens,
Nay.
pardon me. Casey, can you
Casey,
confirm?
Nay.
confirm.
No.
Dennis Perrier,
Yay.
Casey White.
Nay.
So we have a tie, which means defeated, or do you vote?
Yes. Yay. So as per the recorded vote, the motion is approved. Thank you. Inquiry report from the Integrity Commissioner. Dr. Van Elliott.
We had an inquiry submitted to our Integrity Commissioner last June, and this is the report that was submitted for findings. The report has been received by council, and Councillor Adams has also submitted his response in writing.
Comments from council? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, so certainly what I've seen from other municipalities in their inquiry commissioner pretty much policy is that they require some of them to provide a cost. Something that we haven't been provided yet was the cost of this investigation. So maybe moving ahead, that's something that we can add within our policy. But pretty much within my report back, I identified the paragraphs where there seems to be confusion as whether it was a service review that we had voted with Strategy Corp or an operational review. So I truly ask that this report is rejected. Certainly trying to be in the best interest of the municipality and following the Municipal Act. Yes, certainly could have perceived that as the code of conduct violation states, is that it's perceivable that it was a conflict of interest. It wasn't. And I certainly would disagree that I went against council's decision by requesting a service review because council had done an RFP for an operational review. Both different, extremely different. And that's why we were asked to do a service review tonight, not an operational organizational review, etc. That's it.
I think part of the report is whether not that we're accepting necessarily the content, but we're acknowledging receipt of the report. Isn't that correct, Megan?
So we do have a motion to receive. There is other recommendations within the report. If you wish to add to the motion steps that we would like to take as a council.
In my opinion, as the leader of council, I think we can acknowledge receipt of the report. There's some things I don't entirely agree with, but I do agree with the last page of the report recommendations that there was a recommendation that further training in procedures was required. We've had 3 sessions with Fred Dean, Nigel, and Wirt. I don't think that's what the issue is. The one thing after about 2 years in council, I think we do need some training and team building. I would go back to, in my opinion, is more of mutual respect in the workplace for fellow councillors and respect their input and their decisions. That's where I think there's a bit of a downfall on our part. We all are here for the right reason, to make this a better community and to manage it fiscally responsible management. But I think we need to work towards a teamwork approach. And that's the main thing that I got out of this report. I think a lot of the little issues along the way could have been resolved beforehand with sitting down and discussing and working more towards a teamwork approach. That's my personal opinion. Councillor Ivanov.
Your Worship, I agree with you. I think we do need further education. I have a concern now because I'm thinking if you belong to the golf club who have weddings or have hall rentals out there, or the Legion, or Northern College, the Encore Club, the curling, of course, the Masonic Hall, then all of those, if you're a member of any of those places, we should not be on any of these issues. And, you know, that just sounds so ridiculous to me that, you know, that you can be pulled into a conflict of interest because you're a member of an organization.
Any further comments or suggestions to be put in this motion? I would personally recommend that we do have somebody like Nigel come in and do a session, a training session on teamwork, team building, and mutual respect in the workplace. I think we can all use it. New councillors in our position, including myself. And I think we do need some fine tuning and working together to make our decision making and cooperation to be improved. Do we have any objections to that? Or any further comments? Not noted.
Okay, so
Can we add that direction?
so taking out of the report, one of the recommendations was receive leadership as well as team building training. So I'll add that into the motion to say, so it's moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Be it resolved that the inquiry report dated February 19, 2020 from E4M be received and that council receive leadership as well as team building training.
Any further comments? All in favor? Opposed? One opposed? 6 in favor.
Maybe my leg, I can see anything.
Thank you. CAO Rick McGee, in regards to the COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council. We're going to report by committee. I'm going to provide some introductory comments. Nancy Roach, will provide comments from Tech Pioneer residents. We will hear from Bonnie Sackrider. Following that, concluded with Claudette Pullen and Keith Gorman from the Human Resources and Finance perspective, and I'll provide any concluding comments required. Your Worship, Council may be aware that there was a press conference this afternoon at 3 p.m. led by the Medical Officer of Health for the Temiskaming Health Unit, where the good doctor reported that the first case of COVID-19 positive test result was received within the Temiskaming district. The report stated that a 30-year-old male tested positive for the COVID-19 virus and contracted it from a Canadian who had just returned from the United States. All of the precautions were taken. The individual that tested positive was swabbed in the parking lot of the hospital and immediately self-quarantined for the 14-day period. The Medical Officer of Health stated on a number of occasions that he was unable to release the details of the individual's name or the location within Temiskaming district of where the individual lived. The individual was isolated immediately, and the good doctor indicated that contact with others was limited to immediate family. That is the update, that one positive result has been confirmed within the Temiskaming Health Unit. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Roche to update us from a healthcare perspective and Tech Pioneer resident. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
So we've had 2 staff that have been tested and they're both negative. We have 1 resident that's in the hospital currently that has been swabbed, and we're expecting a result by Thursday, but she's doing well. We're experiencing staffing shortages due to our ongoing outbreak that we've had since the end of February. We do have, with those 2 staff that were off for over a week waiting for swab results, now that they're back, that's alleviating some of our staffing crisis. We're able to secure a fair amount of PPE, which we are starting to build a pandemic in case we get COVID-19 in the home. Staff are all pulling together, working as a team, very proud of them. It's been very trying times over the last few weeks, and we don't even have COVID-19. So I can only imagine what this means for our sector once staff have to be off for 14-day periods. I think that's about all I have to say right now.
I'll carry on. It's Bonnie. So over the last week, we've all witnessed enormous change, whatever our various roles are. As the number of cases in Canada, Ontario, and Northeastern Ontario have increased, so have both restrictions and best practices. The closure of municipal buildings to the public meant that many of us were challenged to find new ways of doing business. For facilities accepting rentals, closures mean cancellations with unknown timelines for rebooking. Within the corporation, we are being extremely vigilant, with all staff following all recommendations coming from the Ontario Ministry of Health, Health Canada, and the local Timiskaming Health Unit. These include things like hand washing techniques, one that's very hard for a lot of us, refraining from touching our faces, social distancing, working from home, and self-assessments if needed. Mayor Kiley released a number of valued suggestions to help us show others that we care and to let our downtown businesses know that we value them. All staff have been positive and ingenious when looking for ways to ensure that we deliver the services expected in a time of daily and sometimes hourly change. Seeing how everyone responds to crisis definitely does make me proud to be a member of the TKL team.
Bonnie, I may add, and I think I mentioned this to Rick, in talking to the two media representatives in our community, they had nothing but praise for the manner in which staff and council have been handling this difficult situation and experience that we've never experienced in the past in this council for sure. So I compliment the staff and council for their support, and the communication that we're getting out to the community has been very positive received. I'm sure as we occasionally, when we do have to go out, I've heard nothing but complimentary comments. So let's keep it going. We're on the right track and doing the best we can under the circumstances. Any further comments from Councillor Adams?
Yeah, today I was approached by a business owner downtown who is making no money currently, and certainly with the tax bills coming up and following the lead of other municipalities that they've been pushing back or waiving interest on pretty much property taxes. Yes, we don't have any cases within Kirkland Lake specifically yet identified, but something that allows for social distancing is for people to feel that they can push back, not having to pay bill deadlines at a certain period. Certainly something that's being done throughout the communities. I've heard a request from a business owner today, and I've heard from community members already. That's something that I'm interested in. I think staff's doing a great job, especially the frontline workers currently. But if there's something that we can do to help our businesses and our taxpayers alleviate the burden of social distancing and working at home, not just working at home, sorry, but being self-isolated, I think we can maybe do.
Councillor Ivanov?
Yeah, no, I second Councillor Adams' comments. I think it's a great idea to, I think Toronto has done a 90-day extension on all taxes and water bills, and I think that Kirkland Lake would show certainly some empathy to people who are out of business right now or very low on business because of what's happened. I think it's would be a great idea to give taxpayers a break. I know it's difficult for us to operate under our financial constraints, but I think there's a lot of people that are under financial constraints at the present time.
Treasurer Gorman.
I believe, thank you. I think if we could get a directive out of council to have staff write a report, you'll have one in your inbox right after the meeting. We've drafted a preliminary report in anticipation and in recognizing the other initiatives that we've seen come forth from municipalities across the province.
Thank you. Can we have a direction in that manner?
I'm adding it to the motion. I don't believe that the staff have finished their verbal report yet, so I can read the motion as it is now, or did you want me to wait till they're finished?
Well, the direction is to come back with a report, basically.
You guys are done?
So we have drafted a report that we intended to distribute, or we just need direction to actually run that.
I'd say to come back with your recommendations. That can be done with the other.
Yep, so I have a motion to receive this verbal report and then direct staff to bring forth a report to the April 7th meeting. I'm just, I'm holding off on reading the motion formally because I believe that other staff members still have more to say, or am I incorrect?
I have a question on that. I have, if we wait until April 7th, when are these bills going out? Like, is it going to be too late by the 7th?
I do have some concerns in regards to waiting till the 7th. Hence why we've drafted the reports in anticipation. As it stands, like, I would just caution everybody to proceed cautiously here. As we see different municipalities putting out initiatives and things like that, you've sort of got to isolate everybody and look at the unique circumstances. For instance, North Bay, they're one of the municipalities that have came out recently and said they'll be deferring bills. The challenges we have, particularly with Kirkland Lake, is we're midway through collection of that interim levy. So we've had installments apply on the March 12th installment, and our next installment is due on April 9th. So you look at North Bay, they've had their interim levy. It was remitted basically at the end of February, and their next set of tax bills are into June. So there are some challenges based on the procedural bylaw that we've passed. I've tried to identify them and sort of put forth some ideas that I think can help support the intention of, you know, I think the concern that everybody has is cash flow and that kind of thing. And so I think, like I said, we've got some ideas that we can put forward. I just don't want to speak out of line and have them.
To not interfere with the billing process, perhaps we could call a special meeting next Tuesday. Would this be a reasonable request?
For sure. I have no issues with that. We've had the preliminary report drafted. It's sitting and we're reviewing it right now.
It's a big, a lot to think about, and we can't rush into it without all the information, and time's of the essence. So Tuesday would be sufficient time, I think, certainly for council, if that's okay with the staff.
Yes.
Do you want to conclude the report, Your Worship? Yeah. Yeah, go through your.
Okay, sorry guys. Thank you, Your Worship. Just to get back towards the topic of COVID-19, I wanted to speak briefly about the administration aspects of some of the steps that we've taken here within the municipality to ensure the well-being of our staff while trying to align and adhere with the guidelines being provided by healthcare officials in both levels of government. So early in the onset of the pandemic, we started to explore opportunities for remote work opportunities. We basically assessed our inventory levels of laptops, and we've built up a small complement to provide work from home opportunities for non-essential staff and those that have been challenged with the closure of daycares and schools. So we do have some staff that are actively working from home this week, and we anticipate a few more to be doing so over the course of the next couple of weeks. In advance of the facility closures that we saw, we did place a lot of emphasis on heightened cleaning purchase of additional supplies, and having them readily accessible for staff to be able to clean up workspaces and that kind of thing, those high-touch frequency areas. We've put a lot of efforts onto the communication side of things. We've focused on social media, but we've also purchased advertisements. We think that the message has got out there pretty well. We've tracked incoming calls. We anticipated a lot of them, and we literally had a couple handfuls this week in returns. So I think the staff has done a fantastic job on that message, getting it across to the media through the various forms. Now where we're at is we've essentially moved over to formulating a plan on paper. That sort of reflects those ongoing discussions we've been having over the last couple of weeks, with a focus on continuity of services as well as the well-being and safety of our staff. From a finance perspective, we've begun to coordinate with departments to try to quantify lost revenues associated with the pandemic, as well as additional costs, as we don't quite know the extent of this or what implications it's going to have on our 2020 budget and going forward for the corporation.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman. So in conclusion, Your Worship, I am very impressed with the way the people of Kirkland Lake and the staff are accepting the challenges brought forward by COVID-19. I can tell you that everybody is working extremely hard and extremely well together. And I apologize to Ms. Loach for mispronouncing her name earlier. We're all firmly behind Ms. Loach and her people at TPR to ensure that they have resources and the staff support that they need to serve the residents of TPR. We are also committed to providing a strong and positive message. And Ms. Sackrider has taken over communications in conjunction with Ms. Rell and Mr. Haas to support and keep spirits high in the business and residential community. And we accept any recommendations and welcome the people of Kirkland Lake to call the administration line if they have challenges that we may be able to assist with. Thank you, Your Worship. That is our report.
Thank you. We haven't heard from the province as far as any funding or just mention of funding, but that has been Treasurer.
There has been some funding received specific to TPR to aid and assist in the challenges that are being faced. This, so it was 2 installments of 37,500. One's already been received by the municipality, and the next one is anticipated next month.
Yeah, okay, that's good to hear. We haven't heard any additional funding for the rest of the municipality operations, but that remains to be seen. I think we're prepared to give that information, not knowing how long this is going to last. That's, hopefully we will
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, I can advise that DSAB received additional funding today for social services and social housing, I believe the announcement was for. And because municipalities in better financial position than some organizations within the not-for-profit sector, I think they're focusing on healthcare right now and looking to roll out the money. So we anticipate announcements will be coming forward in the future, especially as municipalities start to pass their second deadline for taxes due, where they'll have to actually start dipping into working funds or reserves or lines of credit to finance operations. So we're very optimistic and recognize the province has a great deal on their plate, and our priority, we believe, is in the queue, will be coming forward over the next 30 to 60 days.
Thank you for that update.
So I have a motion moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that the.
Wait, I have a question. I have a question. I raise my hand, but you don't seem to see it whenever I do. We've got some frontline staff that are part of essential services and that they're still dealing with the public. How are we making sure that they have the proper PPE and that they are wearing it to make sure they're protecting themselves?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to
Council. We are conducting health and safety audits of all workplaces with our health and safety officer. There's a heightened awareness by all supervisors and employees that personal protective equipment must be worn. Best practices must be practiced. Social distancing is the order of the day.
And
we also welcome any inquiries from members of council or the public if they see something that they don't feel is a best practice that we need to investigate and address. For instance, concerns with respect to landfill. Residents reported that landfill staff are wearing personal protective equipment. Staff that may have to enter residence for a sewer backup are actively screening residents to ensure that the residential occupancy is safe and practicing social distancing within those areas. So we've taken a number of steps to ensure the safety of staff and the residents of Kirkland Lake, but we certainly welcome any input and feedback from members of council and the community during this very difficult time so that we can all improve.
I think one other consideration is we may, depending on how long this pandemic lasts and state of emergency goes on, that we may consider the fact that we could have some staff working from their home. That's hasn't got to that point yet, but it's under consideration. I'd just like to add that as a fair comment, Rick.
Absolutely, Your Worship. Thank you, and through you to council. I can advise that there are a number of people working from home currently. In fact, a number of them are on this Zoom meeting with us today. We have 2 members of management who are in quarantine and will be progressing through those quarantines over the next 7 and 14 days approximately. And we also have staff that are on standby so that if there's vacancies in mission critical areas such as CPR, we can deploy them through Ms. Loach and her staff to assist in non-regulated healthcare positions such as helping with maintenance, housekeeping, in areas such as that. So staff has been extremely diligent with respect to being prepared and supporting each other.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, just something that I've seen from other companies and certainly recommendations from the government, the public health, is that a company develops a policy specific to COVID-19 with their own risk assessments involved within it. Being a council that's responsible for policy specifically, would a policy be coming forward in the near future about how we are handling this?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to council. If council would like a policy, staff would recommend that we make it a pandemic specific policy and use COVID-19 as the hazard identification and risk analysis benchmark for developing that pandemic policy, if that would meet with the approval of council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Your report is finished, Keith?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you for the update from both you gentlemen.
So would council like me to add in the motion to bring forth a policy for a pandemic? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, just 1 second. Through you, Your Worship. Treasurer Keith, for the wording of the motion, to bring forth a report to consider waiving
Taxpayer relief options. Taxpayer relief options. Be the wording we'd be looking for.
All right, so I have a motion moved by Casey Owen, seconded by Dennis Perry. Be it resolved that the verbal report on COVID-19 update be received, and that council direct staff to bring forth a report to consider taxpayer relief options to a special meeting on March 31st, and that council direct staff to develop a pandemic policy.
All in favor? Unanimous? Passed. COVID-19 report regarding Comfort Street Pumping Station. Manager, Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a pump failure at the Comfort Street pumping station. It was replaced with a standby pump. In discussions with Aqua staff, we're seeing issues with clogging of these pumps fairly frequently, and in discussions with the parts supplier to pump the service, Xylem Water Solutions discussion, they strongly recommend that we upgrade our pump with an end impeller, which would significantly reduce the clogging from such items as rags and other materials that have been thrown into the sewer system. It seems like municipalities are having more issues with COVID-19. They're seeing more paper towels, any types of tissues of a sort that should not be thrown in the sewer system. So everybody's experiencing that issue. And that's one of the reasons why we want to upgrade our pump at this time, the one that we're going to be rebuilding. So this pump is crucial to get repaired as soon as possible. So we have a standby pump. The spring runoff will be coming soon. We have inflows, infiltration issues. So we need that pump to be available as soon as possible. I've shown several other options that you may want to consider, but we recommend that we proceed with the end impeller upgrade to improve our pumping station, being capable of passing rags through the system. It doesn't mean it's going to eliminate the clogging, but it should improve quite a bit the system. We want to be in compliance with MOE regulations and guidelines as soon as possible.
Michelle, do we have a rough estimate of cost?
Yes, in the report it was presented, the pump repairs that were identified, it's $38,821. But there might be some more repairs as the pump is fully apart and that wasn't noticed. So there's a contingency of 10% added to this amount for a maximum sum of $42,703. That should take care of the repairs. There was other options with a C impeller, which was the pump. The repairs was $30,479. And there is an option of purchasing a new pump at $68,892. But we do recommend to proceed with the option 2 with the N impeller upgrade.
Are you asking council to pre-approve this as part of the capital budget?
Yes, we need to proceed as soon as possible. We need to get this pump repaired and be on standby at the plant.
Any comments or questions from council on that? Councillor Ivanoff, is that your hand?
It is. And if we need the it repaired, it's time to get it done. And he's right. You know what? There's going to be spring runoff, and we should have a backup pump. Just get it done.
Okay, so there's a motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that report number 2020-PW-003 entitled Comfort Street Pumping Station 140 horsepower standby sewage pump be received. That staff be directed to proceed with option 2 and impeller for the repairs of the 140 horsepower standby sewage pump as provided for in the cost estimate from Xylem Water Solutions, and that the monies in the amount of $38,821 plus a 10% contingency not to exceed $42,703.10 required to fund these repairs be allocated from the wastewater capital projects reserve fund.
Any questions, comments? All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Thank you, Michelle. What's that?
Just any bylaws.
Bylaws. Sorry.
I have a motion moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-028, being a bylaw to authorize the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake to enter into an agreement with the United Steelworkers Local 2020.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Passed.
Motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-029, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a contract for the zoning bylaw update.
All in favor? Passed.
Motion moved by Eugene Ivanoff, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-030, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute a transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the Municipal Modernization Program.
All in favor? Passed.
Motion moved by Rick Olin, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-031, being a bylaw to execute documents related to the sale of a property located at 40 Swastika Avenue to Tyler Letelier.
All in favor? Passed, unanimous.
Motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be ready first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-032 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 19-033 being a bylaw that authorized the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with FedNor for Northern Development Program funding for expansion of municipal services adjacent to the industrial park.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Questions from council to staff? None noted. Notice of motions? None noted. Councillor reports? Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I certainly just want to thank the businesses that take social distancing and this pandemic seriously by choosing to close at this time. Certainly there's some sacrifices being made for the greater good of the public, and I certainly appreciate that. But besides that, to our staff that are continuing to work, especially our frontline workers, keep doing the great job you're doing, and stay safe.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask people of Kirkland Lake not to hoard items. There's a lot of people in this town live paycheck to paycheck, and if they go to the grocery store and the items aren't there because you bought 2 months worth of supply, you're increasing the risk to the whole community because they're going to have to go back again and again. Please keep your neighbors in consideration during this crisis. And if you know of elderly people that are living alone, or other people that are living at home alone, or people with mental health issues that are living alone, please reach out to them by Facebook or phone, just to let them know that they're not really alone. The community's behind them, and I think if we act like we have in the past, Kirkland Lake will get through this quite well, and at the end of it, we'll be proud of the way we responded.
Thank you. Councillor White?
And just a reminder to the members of the public to always get their information from reliable sources. I've seen a few posts on Facebook encouraging seniors to put up red pieces of paper or green pieces of paper from somebody that works out in the community. Unless you're on Facebook, you would have no idea what these things look like. And many of our communities members have in-home workers going in to check on them daily. So it's not a great idea to do like this Facebook situation, encouraging people to do things outside of what's regulated in the healthcare system.
Good point. I'd like to, might be repeating myself, but as Councillor Adams said, thank the community, our staff, the businesses, and the residents for the support during this difficult time. It's uncharted waters for us. We're doing the best we can, and I think so far we've handled it fairly well. So big thank you to everybody involved in the community. Additional information.
Motion moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the Ministry of Energy be received.
All in favor? Passed.
Motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the Minister of the Environment be received.
All in favor? Unanimous. Received. Passed.
So we're going to move into a closed session. So I will read that motion to do so, and then we will pause or possibly stop the recording. So moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that council move into an in-camera meeting pursuant to section 239(2) to discuss 4 employee negotiation items, 1 proposed land disposition, and 1 matter relating to an identifiable individual.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Confirmation bylaw.
So
Sorry.